Shuwei, Wache, Sego, Tansei, welcome. How many people have been to the Royal Ontario Museum before? Welcome to Indigenous Voices. We're super excited to share and broadcast or share this live webinar with you from the downtown Toronto here in the Mississauga of the Credit, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat ancestral homelands. Look at that. There are a number of people who have already been to the ROM and some who are just arriving. So I'm so glad you're able to tune in. Today's broadcast is Power of Poetry, and we're so excited to share this important day on International Women's Day because we're celebrating poetry and the life and times of Pauline Johnson. Pauline Johnson is from Six Nations, and she even had a 5-cent penny honored in her name 100 years after her birth. In 1961, she had a penny made in her name. And while Indigenous Voices really loves to explore what's history, we're also really very passionate here at Indigenous Voices to make some important contemporary connections. And today our contemporary connection happens to also be International Indigenous Women's Day, celebrating the life and times of Pauline Johnson. And the oral tradition of poetry in general is beautiful because poetry helps us in sign language. Poetry is taking words from your heart and sharing it with the world. So our sign for the day is Native, which is people of the water and land poetry. And we're going to introduce you to a guest in a moment for a poetry activation. So we're going to treat today like a webinar tutorial. So what we're going to do is encourage students, if they don't already have a pen and paper ready to go, you're going to hear from our guest, Zoe Roy, an opportunity to write a poem with us. And we're going to work towards writing a poem of the world we see around them. And teachers need to be prepared to see this as a tutorial and also be willing to workshop some of the ideas generated by learners in this session. And we encourage teachers to play along as well. Because of the webinar, we have a limited features in our webinar. What I want people to do is be encouraged to use the question and answer section to add their comments on any pieces of poetry that they're writing alongside us. So we'll revisit that in a moment. What I'd like to do is take a moment to say a really big shout out to our most recent community partner, the Association for Native Development in the Performing and Visual Arts, who has generously been agreed to partner with Indigenous Voices here in the ROM school programs to support the artist fees for guests like our guest today. So I'm not going to waste any more time. What we want to do is thank Ampava for their partnership so that we can work with wonderful artists like Zoe Roy so that we can make art. Not everybody draws. Some people make art with their words, and that's the beauty of poetry. Like I said, the sign for poetry is taking the words from your heart and sharing them with the world. So Indigenous is people of the water and land. Poetry today is about the power of poetry. So thank you so much, and super excited to invite Zoe to share her camera and introduce herself. Unmute yourself and join us today.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Tansei, thank you, Jeanette, for that beautiful introduction to the Royal Ontario Museum, for organizing the Indigenous Voices series, and to ANFA for taking care of the artists, of course, but especially to all of you keen students out there for showing up today and being open to create poetry with me, a stranger. Maybe we'll be friends by the end of this session. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and hopefully get you pumped up to create with me over the next 40 minutes or so. Okay, so I am Cree, Dene, and Métis. I'm a member of Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, and that's an area where the trees get skinny on the land and where the trees grow out of the rocks. Saskatchewan, which is where this is kind of known for their prairies. But when you go north in Saskatchewan, you go through the bush and it's thick bush. But as you go more north, the trees get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And then the trees are just growing out of the rocks. And that's what I call home. So are we doing the ancestral object?
I think what we're going to do is hear some poetry from you first, and we're going to jump right in actually to make some poetry. We'll talk about the ancestor object in between the authoring, but I think if we talk about a piece of poetry, we're having International Women's Day today, and
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you, Jeanette. All right, so I will perform some poetry for you. I have 3 poems, and because this is a historical, event, I want to share a poem called The Voyageurs to give you an idea of how I visualize the masculine experience in the creation of Canada, and how that merged with Indigenous women, who I acknowledge as my ancestors as well. So this first poem that I'm going to read to you is called The Voyageurs. There's one part of the poem that goes, if you want to sing it with me, it goes, huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you could hardly hear me. Do you want to try that? Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you could hardly hear me. And the second part to that goes, huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you don't hear me at all. You want to try that? Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you don't hear me at all. I could just imagine 533 students in front of me. You have to remember I'm talking to a little green dot right now, so I have to imagine that you are all singing with me. In fact, maybe we were all in a paddle together. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you could hardly hear me. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you don't hear me at all. All right, let's go into the poem. Here it is. There were young, burly men from the eastern shore who knew from life they wanted more. Their plots were dry, their stories just beginning. They set off to love a life worth living. They were engaged in a plan by the Northwest Sea to traverse the land through the veins of streams. Who could they be? Who could they become? The voyageurs they set out as one. To leave a home and to start anew was not as easy for each crew. A plan was made by just a few, and these men each other they barely knew. They left behind a wholesome life, with some their families and some their wives. At what cost could this journey be? It was a true sacrifice, a testament to thee. You see, money was the draw until the first moon, and they realized this just all too soon. The dollars didn't matter to the trees or folks. It didn't matter to the water, to the paddles each stroke. But the vie to be the manliest man, who could traverse the farthest across this land, who could stand the strongest against each demand, but together they knew they could not disband. They all met at the forks of Montreal, and a party arrived to farewell them all. They knew they had no wherewithal. Their families depended on their westward sprawl. The concept was simple, the company set. They demanded their lives and their respect. An old life in passing, so soon to forget, all attention was needed for this next trek. The water highways were tumultuous, their demeanors were calm. They responded to the water with a range of songs. The rhythm set pace to the paddles each dawn. This they knew as the paddle songs. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you could hardly hear me. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you don't hear me at all. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you could hardly hear me. Huzzah, huzzah, on the river, you don't hear me at all. The fast pace led them through the scariest moments that took their fear away. It took their attention and all of their logic. They knew they'd have to play. The waves were fierce, the rapids surprise. This they knew as portaging time. They would haul the cargo on each of their backs, 3 packs of 90 pounds to be more exact. But the strongest, of course, would carry much more, and this was to their own accord. They would gain more capital and they would become more esteemed, and the bourgeois took notice as part of their scheme. Roles were defined, the company set. They were determined to be noticed by the records they set. So they went from pork eaters to Northmen to the real Athabascans in a season. Can you believe that? Who inspired these actions? The pork eaters went just as far as the interior, and their goal was to work, not to be more superior. So they traded with tribes for furs and tools because a market in Europe awaited these fools. You see, fur was in fashion, the business of vanity. Nonetheless, they could go home to be with their families. The Northmen went further and they learned to live off the land, becoming allies with tribes and facing nature's demands. They developed a system called the trading posts. Some fell in love and no longer wanted to go. The ones who traveled on, they gained the most masculine prowess. They became ingrained in the journey and they became the most proudest. The final stage was to gain a Nehia wife, to learn to live off the land like she did for life. You see, these stories are as webbed as these Canadian streams, how we became a nation who are the Métis. Thank you so much. So this next poem I'm going to do for you really brings to light the women. You know, there was a bunch of young men who were keen to make something of their lives. These were the voyageurs. But as a Métis person, I want to know who were the women. And so the next poem I have for you is called Wahkohtowin. And in this poem, I'm going to share 6 Cree words. I would like for you to say these Cree words with me. I'm going to tell them to you right now. So just repeat after me. I'll say them slow. Don't look to the person next to you. You can't even see each other's mouths anyway. So just give it a go, okay? All right, so the first word is Wahkohtowin. Wahkohtowin. Let's try that again. Wahkohtowin. I can tell you're doing a great job. Wahkohtowin is the concept of kinship. It means looking out for people around you, even though they don't look like you. Everybody is deserving of love and care, and so we look out for each other. The second word that I'm going to share with you is called Bimatsuin. Would you like to say that? Bimatsuin. Let's try that again. Bimatsuin. Now, Bimatsuin in Cree translates to the good life. And in order to get to the good life, you need to practice love, respect, humility, honesty, courage, truth, and wisdom. Now, I think it's really interesting that these 7 words have something really unique in common. So I'm going to share those 7 words with you. Love is Sakitowin. Would you like to say that? Sakitowin. Respect is Manitsitowin. Your turn. Manitsitowin. Good job. Okay, the next one is humility, and that is Tapateamowin. Tapateamowin. Let's try that again. Tapateamowin. Good job. The next word is honesty, and that is Tapwitatowin. Tapwitatowin. Do you want to try? Tapwitatowin. Good job. The next word is courage, and that is Sokiamwin. Sokiamwin. That's a little monotone, hey? Sokiamwin. Good job. Now the next word is wisdom, and that is Ianisuin. Would you like to say that? Ianisuin. I'm sure you're doing great. Real great. Okay, the last word is truth, and that is Tapweowin. Can you say that? Tapweowin. And what do these 7 words have in common? I'm going to tell you because I can't hear you. They all end in win. So through these 7 teachings, everyone wins, and we don't have to step over each other in order to win. So I think that's something I want to be a part of. I'm so happy to share those 7 teachings with you. So the next word that I'm going to say in this poem is Nesteowak. Nesteowak means men. Nesteowak. The other word is Esquelak. Esquelak. Esquelak means women. And they used our language for a long time for racism, for racist purposes. So you might hear derogatory words about women. They actually come from the word esquel, which means woman. Esquelak means women. The next word is manitsitoin. And I taught you this one. It's one of the 7 teachings. Let's try it again. Manitsitoin. Manitsitoin means respect, but respect as an action means to do no harm. Think about that one. And finally, the last word I'm going to share with you is wanaskewin. Wanaskewin. Wanaskewin means to live harmoniously. I'm really happy to share some of my words with you. These are part of my language from my ancestors and from my land, and what makes culture is the language. So it's really important for everyone to make sure that Indigenous languages of this land are thriving. And I think that means that all Canadians can learn the language of their land that they live on. So this next poem I have for you is called Wahkohtowin. Everything in the world has a spirit. Wahkohtowin. This is the Pimatsuin. I understand some of us has lost this, and I know the retrieval of it is hard, so I press on. Nesteowak and Esquelak, let's press on. We've pummeled courageously from our roots to roots of cages, building upon and maintaining our matriarchs and our organizations. We've stayed patient as strategists. We're stubborn because we can resist. We've always only had one chance. So we work and we dance, we feed our families, we laugh. Never have we had enough time to collapse, so we whisper to each other, hard times always pass. Now I can only wish and pray that this patience will last as I listen for their echoes from the past. And you see, we've endured diaspora, but now we do it to ourselves. And now it seems it's both for and from ourselves. Mind you, Wahkohtowin still exists. And this is where it begins. And this is how we all win. From all of us and for all of us, Wahkohtowin starts within. So let's put down our fists and open our hearts so our children can find a way back to their start. We all do matter, and each of us are enough. We're enough to stand against that darkness we all face, enough to give and accept a purposeful grin, enough to hold and be held, to love and be loved. Wahkohtowin starts within. Everything in the world has a spirit. And as Maria Campbell affirms, home is where the spirit dwells. So Nesteowak and Esquelak, let's keep our hearts open. Manitsitoin, work and Wanaskewin and call our spirits home. Zoe, come home. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Are we ready to write some poetry, Zoe? We're already at 20 past. Can you believe how timer goes?
Yeah, you said that my cutoff time was 11:40 and that I was able to take the time that I needed for my workshop.
Well, we're hoping to write some poetry with you as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I just had a few poems for that section so I can open up the conversation. But
Perfect.
if you want to just start instead, we can do that. So what would you like?
Well, I'd like to introduce you. We've got our a willing classroom with you today. So Justin and Kaya are joining us. If they want to open their cameras, we can introduce you to Justin and Kaya. And we're going to break a little bit of a rule here today. We're going to encourage students to follow along with the writing prompts that Zoe shares with us, and also add your comments to the question and answer section. And Justin will add that to our group poetry, because you wanted us to write a poem about how we see the world around us.
Okay. Great. Do you have anything else to share, Jeanette?
Yep, that's good. We'll just take your lead on how you want us to write this piece of poetry together, hoping students can follow along in the classroom and add to their comments. And then teachers, we could get teachers to workshop it after. Wouldn't that work well, Zoe?
Okay, sure. All right. Well, can all of the students grab a piece of paper and something to write with? So just make sure that's in front of you. Give you 10 seconds to do that quick, like a bunny. That's what my mom always says. All right, so I'm gonna tell you what this activity is. So I would like everyone to just take a moment, and we're going to breathe in. We just heard a bunch of poetry, a bunch of words, so much stuff. Let it all go. Whatever you did this morning, however the weather is, whatever you're worried about, let's breathe that in and let it go. We are here, and we are going to just observe the space that we are in. Right now, in this moment, history is made by a bunch of moments. And as you can see, history was made by just a bunch of imperfect people. So just embrace your imperfections, embrace, the moment. We're gonna look at things that we notice around us. So the first thing that I would like you to do is write down, I notice. Write down, I notice on the top of your page. And then I would just like you to consider the things that you smell, the things that you see, the things that you taste, the things that you hear. Let's activate those senses. And I want you to write down something you notice. There are no right or wrong answers. So we'll just go ahead and write down something I notice what? And our lovely participants are going to write down things that they notice. We're going to write down 4 things we notice all together.
Excellent. So while students in the classroom are hopefully following along, what we're going to do is watch for, Justin's going to watch for comments in the question and answer section, because we actually have deactivated the chat. But what I'd like to do is give students time to take that moment, as Zoe is instructed, to explore what they notice. And I know that when we got ready for today, Zoe, we talked about some of the things that inspire you, and we chose this ancestral object, and it was they called it a dog blanket, or they said, or a tablecloth. And this is some art that comes from Dene culture. And what do you recognize about this object that you like most? While students are writing what they notice around them, we chose this object for you to notice.
Yeah, well, it just reminded me of my grandpa. My grandma was a nurse in her home community, and my grandpa was he ran the ambulance, but he ran the ambulance on the dog sled.
Oh.
So the only way to get from the community where they lived on the land to the town where the doctor was by dog sled. And so that's what this blanket reminds me of.
a very important connection to, like helping energy in your community too, because that kept them connected to the world as much, right? Or medicines they needed or supplies and such things.
Yeah, and also endurance. Like, I just feel that the practicality of that blanket is really going to take care of you. There was a lot of care put into it.
For sure. So let's see how we're doing, because when we started this activity, this page was blank, but you can see now we're using something in Google Jamboard where students, if they haven't used that before, it's a free feature in, but do you see how it started blank, Zoe? It's not so blank now, is it?
Yeah, that's really great. So there's a lot of I noticed statements, and I just want to invite everyone to look at the I noticed statements on the Jamboard here, but just make sure that you have your own 4 I noticed statements. They can be as random as you want them to be.
There you go. And sometimes we might see some themes, right? Like this is talking about furniture, humming of a fridge. This one's talking about wind. We might notice some themes, hey?
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, so I wonder, do you think we're ready to move on, Jeanette?
I think so. I think Justin's been, you can see Justin's captured some participants who are willing to play in the sandbox with us. So students keep writing your ideas of what you notice in the world around you, and Justin will continue to add them here.
Okay. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, I'm going to wait until there's 4 of them here. Thank you, Justin.
Excellent.
And thank you everyone for submitting your answers into the question box.
Excellent. So we've almost got 4 comments from the participants. There we go. Excellent. So from here, what is it that helps us as poets? What are we paying attention to?
The real trick is to creating is to be in the moment. One of the most natural things that we learn the older we get is to judge and criticize ourselves. So this exercise is to just acknowledge whatever is around us as important. Make it important, because things are not important until we make them important.
There you go. So there's some themes here. There's a smell of cold in the air.
Yeah, so this is really great. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cross out the word I notice, and we are going to replace it with I am. Then we are going to rewrite our 4 I notice statements so that they make sense.
Excellent. So we'll get our students to change this up, our willing students in the background, hey? To change up these sentences and clean up the sentences. So I wrote, I am the bird song that awakens everyone into a new season. So I changed that sentence just a little bit.
Yeah.
So it makes a bit more sense. And Justin and Kaya will continue to change those sentences. And I wondered if maybe you could share with me what you had in mind when you asked me to find a hunting object for you. You thought that a hunting object from the ROM collection helps you talk a bit about your culture and how that influences your poetry. So I've got this deadfall trap behind me. Not an extension cord in sight. You can see that it's made from nature.
Yeah, I didn't realize that we were going to talk about this particular thing. I come from Reindeer Lake. That's where my grandma raised my family, and it was in her generation that she was introduced to residential schools and to the reserve system. But the way she grew up, she grew up on the land next to the water, and they obviously had to survive. Surviving is not like a bad thing. Surviving is a reality. This is the way it is in the moment. And so they made do with what they had. And this was one of the tools that they used to trap animals.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the ancestral objects in your background? You talked about that being special to you.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I grew up in the prairies. Like, you know, in my mom's generation, obviously you had to move down to the city in order to get opportunities. So I feel really connected to the prairies. And what I notice about the prairies is that there's no buffalo. And I know these aren't buffalo skulls, but when I found these in a museum, they just reminded me of home. And I love that they are speakers. So they're old objects connected to my ancestral, my ancestral ties, connected to my story as a person, but I make it contemporary by redesigning them and making them speakers. I didn't create them, but they're a contemporary representation of something that is always been familiar to us.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm happy to jump back to sharing our screen to see how far. Remember, we started out with a blank page. We're not so blank anymore, are we?
Yeah, this is really great. So I'm just going to go ahead and read some of these out loud. I know everyone here can read, but it's nice just being read too, huh?
Yeah.
I am the wind moving through my window, the smell of cold air, the fridge humming, the heat of the radiator. I am the bird songs that awakens everyone in a new season. The only thing I like about winter, fresh snowfall sparkling like a disco ball. I am the winter winds dancing with warm spring, the brighter days making me smile. I am the snow drifts shimmering. The land is firm beneath my feet, the trees rattling and dancing, the faucet dripping rhythmically. I am the sparkle of the scarf my mother gave me, the humming of the heater of the voices from my mom's office. And the voices from my mom's office. I am the rumble of my cat purring, the birds free and tranquil through their flight. Isn't that wonderful? Now let's cross out the word I am. And we are going to replace it with we are.
Awesome. So we're encouraging students that are tuned in to be doing the same thing. It'd be nice, what would you recommend is a good sized group? Today we have about 3 or 4 of us working on this piece of poetry. Could you have a whole class do a piece?
Well, that would be really great. So after this session, if all of the students can share their we are statements with your teacher, then your teacher can share them with the ROM, and then maybe I'll get a chance to read your poems. So what I really like about this is that not only do we make judgments about ourselves, but we make judgments about the people around us too, don't we? Sometimes we even make judgments about the things around us. Sometimes the humming of the fridge is too loud. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we just make judgments and they don't necessarily make us feel happy, or they don't make us feel connected. But as you can see here, these are very simple. They're so familiar and they make me feel connected. I really like that about this poem. So my hope is to bring us together by creating a collective poem. And yeah, I think that's what I want to say about that. Do you have any other questions about that, Jeanette?
I think we're good. I mean, I think we've changed all the statements to we are, and we may look for some themes, but why don't we pull together something that reflects our group poem today?
Okay, so that's great. We can, let's pull some themes. Are there any way that we can color code these?
If they were in a sticky note, I suppose, but
like, can we change the color of the text?
I don't know that it's that fancy, but we can see that there are some
themes. Yes, you can change the color of the text. Okay, perfect. If there is any text that has to do with outside, let's make it blue. Any text that has to do with inside, let's make it green. Or let's make it some other obvious color. Orange, we'll say. Whatever color you want, but I just noticed that teal. I don't know if that's blue or green. I don't want to confuse you. Oh, that's super green. Okay.
I'll let the youth know
if you notice, if you notice, students who are listening to me right now, when I read the poem, you noticed how I didn't read all of the we are statements. I kind of left it to the top and the bottom. So every 4 statements, you can repeat the words we are. I think, or do it in a way that like flows naturally for you, but definitely you don't have to do it on every statement. Okay, so these are now blue and green. Now I'm gonna read the green ones first, and then I'm gonna read the blue ones. I want you to consider separating yours to indoors and outdoors too. You can have 2 poems even if you want, right? Like let's read the green ones and see how it sounds. I'll start from the back. We are the rumble of the cat purring, the humming of the heater, the voices from my mom's office. We are the sparkle of the scarf my mother gave me. We are the faucet dripping rhythmically, the heat of the radiator, the fridge humming, the humming of the fridge. We are the wind moving through my window. That feels like a poem.
Fun. So
go ahead.
I love it. I'm listening.
Yeah, so I think there is no right or wrong way to organize the statements. You can make them thematic, you can, but you don't have to. I think our brain wants us to theme them, but the creative part of us doesn't need them to be themed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that is a collective writing exercise that I wanted to share with you. And if you don't mind, Jeanette, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Excellent. Well, I think just sort of go along with your theme of we are, let's hear what we had to say for the outside. If you like, I'm happy to read that. We are the smell of the cold air, the bird song that awakens everyone into a new season. We are the only thing we like about winter, fresh snow falls sparkling like a disco ball. We are the winter winds dancing with warm spring, the brighter days making me smile. We are the snowdrift shimmering, the land firm beneath the feet. We are the trees rattling and dancing. We are the birds free, tranquil through their flight. Excellent. So I think you gave us some really amazing tools to make that conversation from the heart to come out, by observing the world around us.
Yeah, I had one more poem. Do you mind if I end my session with this poem? Just because it's International Women's Day, and and from your poem, I can tell that you notice your mom. And so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the women in our lives who take care of us, who make us feel good, who make us feel important, who make us feel valued, who make us feel loved. I want you to imagine these people. Don't judge them, don't criticize them, just see them. This poem is for them. We are the wonders of the world. Whatever it takes, we'll make it work. We are caretakers of the earth. We're warriors for all people, defenders of all that's life. We will not be pushed aside. Women are transcenders of greatness. We're sacred. Women are patient. Sometimes some of us are late, but we more than make it. Women are valued to be valued because we're valuable. Women are the foundation. Listen, we're not malleable. Women have character and we come in all shapes and sizes. Women are resilient. We persevere, rain or shine. Women endure struggle, and at most times it's silent, but women are courageous. Yes, women give me guidance. Women are leaders. We're multi-talented, complex. Yes, women are the boss without having to flex. Yes, women are storytellers, story keepers, teachers. Women are community builders, insightful believers, catalysts. You are all my sisters. Women are an inspiration. Women are life givers, a majestic yet perfected creation. Women are elevating, and we elevate each other. Yeah, we're independent, but we still need our brothers. Women are powerful, and we carry a voice. And we'll hold our position till it's time to make noise, 'cause we are the wonders of the world. Thank you so much for letting me share this space with you. Back to you,
Excellent.
Jeanette.
Thanks so much, Zoe. We're keen to make this connection on International Women's Day. I even, as part of today, I wore my Wild Woman of the Wood, and I even wore my West Coast cedar bark, because today was also really about weaving our ideas together. That, you know, with the pandemic, we're all stuck at home alone, and this is a wonderful activation. You could see we did this even on Google Jamboard from different households here downtown, and you're all the way in Kingston. So the internet gives us some really interesting wiggle room to explore our voices as Indigenous people. Historically, we were silenced, and folks like Pauline Johnson, we walk on the shoulders of, who broke through the silence and really used her voice to champion an Indigenous worldview. And one of the things we like to do here at Indigenous Voices is give you a chance to see the world through different eyes. And I want to thank Zoe for being a big part of today. We don't have much in our collection from Pauline Johnson. We do have this beautiful necklace made out, looks like out of bear claws, that come from the collection. But more importantly, today's episode was also about celebrating you, Zoe, and celebrating you as an Indigenous poet who breaks the silence and speaks truth for many, many generations, not even just in the past, but even some of the unborn generations. So thanks for carrying us through and guiding us with your beautiful sacred teachings that help you Bamapsuin live that good life. So I think it's been a very, very exciting day on Indigenous Voices to play in the sandbox with you and see the world together. We're going to take a moment to again thank Ampava for being an outstanding community partner and helping support our artist fees. And we're also going to tune in super quickly to our back of the scenes there. I want to introduce you to Sarah Elliott. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
This work does not happen without you. Thanks for being there. What can our teachers expect after the episode?
All right, so teachers, keep an eye on your inboxes. In about a day, you're going to get a follow-up email from us that has a link to our exit survey and a whole bunch of educational resources to support this lesson for you. And if there's anything you need reminding of, keep an eye on our YouTube channel. This should go up with captions in about Wednesday of this week.
And our team has done some research, and we found out those teachers out there like Twitter. What can we say to our teachers about Twitter? We can encourage you to submit your students' poetry, yeah?
Yes, to @RomToronto, and we would love to see what your students come up with.
Excellent. So the Indigenous Voices is a live webinar, a tutorial, hopefully, to guide a conversation starter with your students to see the world from different perspectives. From time to time, kind of shakes things up a bit. Again, Zoe, any parting words you have to say goodbye to our guests?
I just want, if I was to share anything with you, is that every moment is important, every moment matters, and you matter within every moment. So just don't forget that. All of your ideas are meant for something. So don't sell yourself short. If you create, then keep creating. And don't let anyone tell you any different, because we're all just trying to do our best out here.
Beautiful. So we thank everybody for tuning in to another live webinar here on Indigenous Voices. Thanks to the Slate Family Foundation. Also, thanks to our willing students, Justin and Kaya. We also have support from Misway Beak Aboriginal Employment and Training, who makes their jobs possible. So a lot goes into making these episodes live twice a month. Hope to see you again soon. Have the day you most need. Take care, everybody.